The planet Vareth burned beneath a crimson sky. Its surface, once covered in vast silver forests and crystal oceans, now bore the scars of orbital bombardment. The Kryn Dominion had come with their fleet of 300 warships, descending upon the peaceful colony like predators upon wounded prey. Ambassador Lyra Kessin stood in the command center of the last remaining defense station, her forearms trembling as she watched the display screens. The Vareth people, a slender species with translucent skin and enormous eyes, had never known war. They were artists, philosophers, scientists who spent their lives studying the harmonics of the universe. Now they were dying. "Send the distress signal again," Lyra commanded, her voice breaking. "All channels. Maximum power." Her communications officer, a young Vareth named Silm, looked up with despair in his luminous eyes. "Ambassador, we have sent 743 signals. The Galactic Council has not responded. The neighboring systems refuse to engage the Kryn. We are alone." Lyra closed her eyes. The Galactic Council, that great assembly of 500 species, had deliberated for 3 days while Vareth died. The Kryn Dominion was powerful and the Council feared them. Politics and self-preservation trumped morality. Vareth was too small, too weak, too insignificant to risk war over. Outside, another defense platform exploded in a ball of white fire. The Kryn were methodical, dismantling every military installation before they would begin the ground invasion. Lyra had seen their tactics before. They would strip the planet of resources, enslave the survivors and move on to the next target. "How long until their ground forces land?" Lyra asked. "4 hours, Ambassador," Silm replied. "Our shields will fail in 2. Lyra walked to the observation window. The Kryn flagship, the Devourer's Maw, hung in orbit like a vast metal beast. It was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, surrounded by swarms of smaller warships. The Dominion had conquered 47 systems in the past decade. No one could stop them. "There is one more option," Silm said quietly. Lyra turned. "Speak." "The humans," Silm said. "They have an embassy station at the edge of our system. It was established 3 months ago. They are new to the Council." Lyra felt a flicker of something, not hope but curiosity. "The humans? The species from that backwater world?" "Sol 3. Earth," Silm corrected. "Yes, Ambassador. They were granted provisional council membership only recently. Most species consider them primitive. They have no great fleet, no ancient technology. But they are here." Lyra remembered the human delegation at the council. They had seemed so small, so fragile. Bipedal creatures with soft skin and no natural weapons. They spoke with odd intensity, their faces mobile and expressive in ways that made other species uncomfortable. The council had accepted their membership mostly as a curiosity, a way to study a developing species. What could they possibly do? Lyra asked. "They have 1 station and perhaps a few patrol ships." "I do not know," Silm admitted. "But they are the only ones who might answer." Lyra considered this. Pride warred with desperation. To ask the humans for help would be humiliating. They were considered one of the weakest council species. But what choice remained? "Send them a message," Lyra said. "Tell them Vareth is dying. Tell them the council has abandoned us. Tell them we beg for any assistance they can provide." Silm's fingers moved across his console. Minutes passed in silence. Then his console chimed. "Ambassador, the humans are responding." "What do they say?" Silm's eyes widened as he read the message. "They say, help is coming. Hold your position. Do not surrender. Humanity remembers its promises." Lyra felt a strange sensation in her chest. "That is all." "Yes, Ambassador. But there is something else. They have sent us tactical data. Defensive patterns. Instructions for maximizing our remaining shields. And..." Silm paused, his voice filled with confusion. "They are asking for a complete scan of the Kryn fleet composition and tactical deployment." "Why would they need that?" "I do not know. But Ambassador, their station is transmitting on a strange frequency. Very powerful. It is not directed at us." "Then where?" Silm's hands flew across his controls. "It is a jump beacon, Ambassador. They are calling something. From very far away." Lyra stared at the screens. The Kryn fleet was tightening its formation, preparing for the final assault. Below, on Varetha's surface, millions huddled in shelters, waiting for death or slavery. "How far?" Lyra asked. Silm calculated. "Based on the signal pattern. The Sol system. Ambassador, they are calling Earth." "That is impossible. Earth is 300 light-years from here." Even with the fastest jump drives, a fleet would take weeks to arrive. We have hours. I know, Silm said softly. On the main display, the Kryn Devourer's maw began to glow. Its primary weapons were charging. In moments they would fire on the planet itself, cracking the crust and boiling the oceans. It was their signature move, a demonstration of power that broke the spirit of any resistance. Lyra returned to her command chair. She had done all she could. The humans had responded with kind words, but words would not stop the Kryn. Still, their message echoed in her mind, "Help is coming." She wondered what kind of help could possibly arrive in time. "All personnel," she announced across the station's communications. "This is Ambassador Kessin. I will not lie to you. Our situation is grave. But we are not alone. We have friends who have heard our call. Whatever comes, we face it together. Vareth will be remembered. Our art, our music, our souls will not be erased from the universe. Hold strong. Hold together." The crew responded with a chorus of acknowledgments, voices shaking but determined. On the main screen, the Devourer's maw completed its charge. The massive cannon at its prow began to glow white-hot. Silm gripped his console. "Ambassador, they are firing on the planet. Impact in 30 seconds." Lyra watched the energy beam lance down toward Varetha's northern continent. It would kill 7 million in an instant. Then space itself seemed to tear open. A hole of absolute darkness appeared between the Kryn fleet and the planet, expanding rapidly. It was not a jump point, those shimmered with blue energy. This was something else. Something that made the sensors scream and the lights flicker. From that impossible darkness, a single ship emerged. It was massive beyond comprehension, dwarfing even the Devourer's maw. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, covered in angular armor plates that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols marked its sides, human letters, Silm realized. He read them aloud, his voice trembling. USC. Indomitable. The human warship rose like a titan from the depths of space, and the entire Kryn fleet fell silent. Admiral Vkresh of the Kryn Dominion stared at his tactical display, his 3 eyes blinking in rapid sequence, a sign of extreme confusion among his species. The unknown vessel that had appeared was wrong. Everything about it violated his understanding of spacefaring technology. "Analysis," he barked to his sensor officer. The officer's claws clacked nervously across his console. "Lord Admiral, the vessel it is 13 kilometers in length. Mass readings are inconsistent. Power signatures are unlike anything in our database. The energy output is..." He paused, recalculating. "Sir, if these readings are correct, that single ship generates more power than our entire fleet combined." Vkresh's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Impossible. Check the sensors. This must be a malfunction or a trick." "Sensors are operating normally, Lord Admiral. And the vessel is hailing us." On screen. The main display flickered and a human face appeared. Vkresh had seen humans before at the council, weak, soft creatures. But this human was different. She wore a dark uniform with silver insignia. Her eyes were sharp and cold, the green color of a predator's gaze. Her hair was pulled back severely, revealing a face that bore scars along one cheek. "Kryn Vessel Devourer's maw," the human said, her voice calm and precise. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chin of the United Earth Space Command. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the planet Vareth immediately. Withdraw your forces beyond the system's outer marker within the next 30 minutes. Vkresh felt anger surge through his limbs. This human dared to give him orders? Him, the conqueror of 47 worlds? "Human," he hissed, his translator rendering the word with appropriate contempt. "You have made a terrible mistake. You have appeared with one ship against my fleet of 300. I do not know what trick of technology allows your vessel to project false sensor readings, but you will now witness the fate of those who interfere with the Dominion." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "That was your one warning. You have chosen poorly." The transmission ended. Vkresh stood, spreading his forearms wide. "All ships target that human vessel. Fire everything. I want it reduced to atoms." 300 Kryn warships turned their weapons on the Indomitable. Plasma cannons, rail guns, missile batteries and energy weapons all fired simultaneously. The space between the fleets turned into a storm of destructive force that would have obliterated a dozen planets. The human ship's shields activated. The barrage hit and stopped. Simply stopped. A hexagonal pattern of blue-white energy fields absorbed every weapon strike. The shields did not waver or weaken. They did not even flicker. "Lord Admiral," the sensor officer reported, his voice cracking. Their shields are holding at 100%. Our weapons are having zero effect. Impossible. Kresh roared. Fire again. All batteries. The Kryn fleet fired again. And again. For 2 full minutes, they poured every weapon in their arsenal against the human ship. The energy expenditure was enormous, enough to glass a dozen planets. The Indomitable's shields remained at 100%. Then the human ship moved. It accelerated with impossible speed, crossing the space between the fleets in seconds. Kresh watched in horror as the massive vessel weaved between his warships like a dancer, its movements precise and graceful despite its enormous size. How is it maneuvering like that? Kresh demanded. Nothing that large should be able to move so quickly. The Indomitable reached the center of the Kryn formation and stopped. Weapon ports opened along its hull, hundreds of them, thousands perhaps. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Admiral Chen's face reappeared. 30 minutes to withdrawal. The clock is ticking. I suggest you use your time wisely. You arrogant, Kresh began, but Chen cut him off. Let me be clear, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. This is not a battle. This is an eviction notice. You have invaded a world under the protection of Earth. That protection is not symbolic. Every minute you remain in this system, you insult humanity. I am authorized to respond with appropriate force. Kresh's blood ran cold at the way she said, appropriate force. There was something in her tone, something that spoke of controlled violence waiting to be unleashed. You think your one ship frightens me? Kresh said, trying to inject confidence into his voice. We are the Kryn Dominion. We have conquered entire sectors. You are nothing but primitives who stumbled onto council membership through luck. Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, do you know what humanity did before we reached the stars? For thousands of years we fought each other. We perfected warfare against our own species. We built weapons that could end all life on our world 100 times over. We studied every possible way to kill, to destroy, to dominate. And then we decided that perhaps we should direct that expertise outward, not inward. She leaned forward slightly. You have 30 minutes. I will not give you 31. The transmission ended again. Kresh felt uncertainty creep into his thoughts for the first time in decades. But he had 300 ships. 300. No species would build just one supervessel. It would be too vulnerable, too valuable. This had to be a bluff. Bring all ships into close formation, he ordered. We will focus fire on a single section of their shields. Every ship target their forward section. Sustain barrage. Even the strongest shields must fail eventually. The fleet repositioned. Every weapon trained on the Indomitable's forward shields. They fired. The human ship's shields held. Minutes passed. The energy expenditure was staggering. Kresh's flagship began receiving warnings about weapon overheating. Then the human ship fired back. Beams of blue-white energy lanced out from the Indomitable. Each beam struck a Kryn warship with perfect precision. Kresh watched as 30 of his vessels were simply disintegrated. Not destroyed in explosions, just converted into expanding clouds of atoms in microseconds. The firing stopped as suddenly as it had begun. That was 10% of your fleet, Admiral Chen's voice said over an open channel. You have 25 minutes remaining. Panic rippled through the Kryn command network. Kresh could hear his captains shouting reports, demanding orders. He had never seen weapons with such power. It was impossible. Deploy the Star Breaker, Kresh commanded. Full power. His officers stared at him. Lord Admiral, the Star Breaker is meant for destroying space stations and moon-sized targets. Using it in a fleet engagement. Now. Kresh roared. The Devourer's Maw began to charge its most powerful weapon, a device that compressed dimensional energy into a single point and released it all at once. It took 5 minutes to charge and consumed enough energy to power a city for a year. But when it fired, nothing survived. The human ship did not move. It simply waited. The Star Breaker fired. A lance of writhing purple energy, barely visible, crossed the space between the flagships in an instant. It struck the Indomitable's shields. For a moment the shields actually flickered. The hexagonal pattern wavered, dimming to 95%. Then they stabilized and returned to full power. No, Kresh whispered. No, that is not possible. You have 20 minutes, Chen's voice said. And you have just demonstrated your maximum offensive capability. Allow me to demonstrate mine. The Indomitable transformed. Sections of its hull began to separate and reconfigure. The ship expanded, unfolding like a mechanical flower. Massive weapon platforms emerged from its core, each one larger than a Kryn destroyer. Railguns the size of buildings locked into position. Energy collectors that looked like wings spread out, drawing power from the surrounding space itself. What is that? Vkresh's tactical officer breathed. What are we seeing? The human ship was no longer a ship. It was a mobile battle station, a fortress in space, bristling with weapons that made the Kryn's arsenal look like toys. That, Admiral Chin said, is humanity's answer to the question. What if we built a ship designed to fight an entire fleet by itself? Welcome to the Indomitable. Let me show you what she can really do. The space around the human vessel began to distort. Ambassador Lyra watched from her command center, her forearms gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Every species in the galaxy thought they understood warfare. The Kryn Dominion had perfected fleet tactics over centuries. The ancient Praxis Collective fought with weapons powered by harvested stars. The mechanical synth Concordat used swarm intelligence to coordinate millions of drones. But this was something else entirely. The Indomitable had become a constellation of destruction. Each weapon platform it deployed operated independently yet perfectly synchronized. Lyra's tactical officer, Silm, was trying to catalog the weapon systems and kept updating his count. Ambassador, I'm reading 300 separate weapon batteries. No, wait, 400. They keep extending more platforms. How is this possible? The power requirements alone should. His words cut off as the human ship demonstrated exactly how it was possible. Beams of coherent light, each one powerful enough to vaporize a cruiser, began firing in perfect sequence. The Indomitable was targeting the Kryn fleet with mathematical precision. One shot per ship. Each beam struck a different vessel, not to destroy but to disable. Engines exploded. Weapon systems melted. Shield generators overloaded. In 30 seconds, 100 Kryn warships were crippled. She's hurting them, Lyra whispered in amazement. Look at the pattern. She's not trying to destroy the fleet. She's forcing them into a specific formation. Silm adjusted the display. Lyra was right. The disabled ships were drifting into a cluster, forming a barrier between the remaining operational vessels and the planet Vareth. The human admiral was using the Kryn's own ships as shields to protect the world they'd been attacking. That level of tactical coordination, Silm said softly. To calculate the exact damage needed for each ship, accounting for their drift patterns, ensuring they don't collide. Ambassador, the processing power required is beyond anything I've seen. Is the human ship controlled by artificial intelligence? I don't know, Lyra admitted. But I'm beginning to understand why the Council accepted humanity so quickly. They wanted to observe them. They wanted to understand what they were dealing with before humans became too powerful. On the display, Admiral Vkresh's flagship was trying to escape. The Devourer's maw began charging its jump drive, preparing to flee the system. The Indomitable responded instantly. A different kind of weapon activated, not destructive but something stranger. A field of blue energy expanded from the human ship, washing over the entire battlefield. Every Kryn vessel simultaneously lost power. Their engines died. Their weapons went dark. Their shields collapsed. Silm, what just happened? The young officer frantically checked his sensors. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, but far more sophisticated than anything in our records. It's targeted, our systems are unaffected. The pulse is somehow distinguishing between Kryn technology and everything else. It's reading their power signatures and disrupting them specifically. One by one, the Kryn ships went dark, floating dead in space. Then Admiral Chen's voice broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring everyone in the system could hear. Kryn Admiral Vkresh. Your fleet is disabled. Your weapons are offline. Your ships are intact and your crews are alive. You can still breathe, still live, still return home. I have given you this mercy because humanity believes in proportional response. You came here to conquer. I came to defend. Those are not equivalent actions. Pause. When Chin continued, her voice carried a weight that made Lyra's skin prickle. But understand this, what I have shown you today is restraint. This is us being gentle. This is us choosing not to kill. If you ever threaten a council world again, if you ever raise arms against the innocent again, humanity will not send one ship. We will send 100. And there will be no mercy, no second chances, no prisoners. Lyra could almost feel the fear radiating from the Kryn fleet. Your ships will regain power in 6 hours, Chin continued. Enough time for rescue vessels to arrive, but not enough for you to cause further harm. Use those 6 hours to consider the choices that brought you here. Use them to decide what kind of species you want to be. The transmission shifted to a private channel that appeared on Lyra's console. She accepted it, and Admiral Chen's face appeared on her screen. The human looked tired, Lyra realized. There were shadows under her eyes, tension in her jaw. This woman had just demonstrated godlike power, yet she looked like someone who had been awake for days. Ambassador Kessin, Chen said, and her voice was gentler now. I apologize for the delay in our arrival. We came as fast as we could. Delay? Lyra's voice cracked with emotion. Admiral, you crossed 300 light-years in less than 4 hours. That's impossible. Chen smiled slightly. Humanity has a saying, impossible is just a word people use when they haven't figured out how to do something yet. We tend to take it as a challenge rather than a limitation. Your ship, Lyra said. The Indomitable. Is this representative of human military capability? The Indomitable is our first deep space deterrence vessel, Chen explained. We built her specifically to respond to situations like this. A show of force that makes actual force unnecessary. But to answer your real question, no, Ambassador, this is not our full capability. This is our diplomatic statement. Lyra felt lightheaded. If this is your diplomacy, what is your warfare? Chen's expression grew somber. Something we hope never to show the galaxy. Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destroying itself. We got very, very good at it. When we finally achieved peace among ourselves and looked to the stars, we made a collective decision. We would be protectors, not conquerors. We would use our capacity for violence only in defense of the defenseless. The Council doesn't know, does they? Lyra said, understanding dawning. They think you're weak. They accepted you because they thought humanity would be easy to control, easy to manipulate. The Council will learn the truth eventually, Chen said. But we prefer to let our actions speak louder than our words. Today Vareth was defended. Today the Kryn learned that aggression has consequences. That's what matters. What happens now? Lyra asked. Now we help you rebuild. The Indomitable carries relief supplies, medical personnel and engineering teams. We'll assist in repairing your defense platforms and treating your wounded. We'll stay in orbit until you feel secure. Tears formed in Lyra's large eyes, a rare display for her species. What? Why would humanity do this for us? We barely know each other. The Council abandoned us, but you came. Why? Chen was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because humanity remembers what it's like to be vulnerable. We remember when we looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone, if we mattered. We remember being afraid. And we decided that when we finally reached those stars, we would be the friends we wished we'd had. It's that simple, Ambassador. You needed help. We came. Lyra wiped her eyes. The galaxy will hear of this. What you've done today will echo across every system. Let it, Chen said. Let them know that humanity stands with the weak against the strong, with the many against the few, with the innocent against the aggressor. Let them know we keep our promises. And let them know. She paused, her green eyes growing hard, that we are not to be underestimated. The screen went dark. Lyra stood in silence, processing everything she had witnessed. Around her, the command center erupted in cheers. The Vareth people, so close to extinction moments ago, were celebrating their survival. Silm approached, his expression a mixture of joy and confusion. Ambassador, I'm receiving messages from across the planet. Everyone is asking the same question. Who are these humans? Where did they come from? How are they so powerful? Lyra looked out at the Indomitable, still floating in orbit like a guardian angel made of metal and determination. I don't know, she admitted. But I think the galaxy is about to find out. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime was in chaos. 500 species, represented by their ambassadors, were shouting, arguing, demanding explanations. Holographic displays showed footage from Vareth. The same footage being broadcast across every civilized system in the galaxy. A single human ship. The entire Kryn fleet disabled. Billions of lives saved. Council Speaker Thorian, an ancient being whose species had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years, raised his crystalline hand for silence. His body was translucent, revealing the complex bioluminescent organs within. When he spoke, his voice resonated with authority. Order, he commanded. We will have order. The chamber gradually quieted. Thorian's many eyes focused on the human delegation. They sat in a modest section of the chamber, neither prominent nor isolated. There were only 3 of them. Ambassador Marcus Webb, a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes, Commander Lisa Torres, a military officer who stood at attention, and Dr. James Chin, a civilian scientist wearing a simple suit. They had been part of the council for only 3 months. Most species barely noticed them. The humans had attended meetings quietly, voted rarely, and offered little commentary. They were seen as newcomers learning their place in the cosmic hierarchy. That perception had just shattered. "Ambassador Webb," Thorian said. "The council demands an explanation. The vessel Indomitable, its capabilities far exceed anything reported in your species profile. You claim to have only limited spacefaring technology. You claim to possess no significant military power. Were these claims deliberate deceptions?" Marcus Webb stood, and the chamber fell completely silent. He looked around at the assembled species with an expression of patient understanding, like a teacher addressing confused students. "Speaker Thorian, honored council members," he began, his voice calm and measured. "We did not deceive you. When humanity joined this council 3 months ago, we provided accurate information about our standard fleet capabilities. Our cruisers, our frigates, our patrol vessels, all were documented honestly. We have 63 standard warships, exactly as reported." "Then explain the Indomitable," demanded Ambassador Vril of the Zentari Collective, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. "That vessel alone has the firepower of 1,000 ships." "The Indomitable is not a warship," Webb replied. "It's a response vessel. Think of it as an emergency service. Humanity built 6 such ships and positioned them in strategic locations across our sphere of influence. They are not for conquest or aggression. They are for intervention in exactly the kind of situation we witnessed at Vareth." 6. The word rippled through the chamber in multiple languages. 6, Webb confirmed. "We call them peacekeeper-class vessels. Their sole purpose is to respond rapidly to crises where innocent lives are at stake." A Meridian ambassador, her serpentine body coiled in her delegation pod, hissed softly. "You have 6 ships, each capable of defeating entire fleets, and you did not think this information was relevant to your council application?" Webb smiled gently. "We were asked about our military strength. We provided that information. We were not asked about our defensive capabilities or emergency response systems. Those seemed like internal matters." "Semantics," roared the Kryn delegate, a different admiral than Vkresh but clearly from the same species. "Your ship humiliated the Dominion. You have made us look weak." "No," Commander Taurus spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. "Your illegal invasion of a peaceful world made you look weak. Your attempt to commit genocide made you look weak." Admiral Chin simply held up a mirror. The Kryn delegate started to respond, but Thorian silenced him with a gesture. "Ambassador Webb," the speaker said carefully, "help us understand. Your species achieved space flight only 200 years ago. Most species require thousands of years to develop technology approaching what we witnessed at Vareth. How is this possible?" Webb looked to Dr. Chin, who stood and adjusted his glasses, a nervous gesture that seemed oddly out of place in a chamber of cosmic powers. "May I speak plainly?" Dr. Chin asked. "Please do," Thorian replied. "Humanity's technological development follows a different pattern than most species in this council," Chin explained. "We spent approximately 10,000 years in what we call civilization, but for most of that time, we were divided into hundreds of competing nations, cultures, and factions. We were not unified. We were not at peace." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history, a timeline marked with countless conflicts. For those 10,000 years, humanity invested enormous resources into warfare. Not just weapons but the entire scientific foundation required to create them. Physics, chemistry, engineering, logistics, strategy, tactics. We advanced all of these fields in service of conflict. By the time we achieved space flight, we had already been to the nuclear age, the information age, and the quantum age. We had already mastered directed energy, electromagnetic manipulation, and advanced materials science. "You're saying human technological advancement was driven by war?" asked a Pelothian ambassador, her aquatic form floating in a suspended water sphere. "Not just driven," Chin said. "Accelerated exponentially. Consider this. In the single century between 1900 and 2000 of our calendar, humanity went from basic flight to landing on our own moon. We went from simple combustion engines to splitting the atom. We went from mechanical calculators to quantum computers. All of this advancement was fueled by 2 global wars and 1 Cold War, a decades-long competition between superpowers that never resulted in direct combat but drove both sides to scientific heights they might not have reached otherwise for centuries." The chamber was silent, processing this information. When humanity finally achieved global peace in 2087, Chin continued, we didn't stop advancing. We simply redirected our focus. All that expertise in weapons development became expertise in defense systems. All that knowledge of destruction became knowledge of protection. The Indomitable represents 2 centuries of post-war human engineering. She's what happens when a warlike species decides to become peaceful but keeps all the skills they learned. That's terrifying, the Meridian ambassador said softly. Is it? Webb interjected. We could have built conqueror fleets. We could have used our technology to dominate. Instead, we built 6 peacekeepers and scattered them across our territory, programmed with strict engagement protocols. Intervene only when lives are at stake, use minimal necessary force, prioritize defense over offense, value all life equally. Pretty words, the Kryn delegate snarled. But you have shown your power. Others will fear you. They will arm against you. You have destabilized the entire galactic order. Webb's expression hardened slightly. The galactic order was already destabilized. The Kryn Dominion has conquered 47 systems in the past decade. The Council has done nothing. How many species have been enslaved while this body debated and deliberated? How many worlds have burned while we discussed procedure? Thorian was quiet for a long moment, his luminescent organs pulsing in complex patterns, a sign of deep thought among his kind. Ambassador Webb, he finally said, what you ask for is a fundamental change in how the Council operates. For 10,000 years, we have maintained peace through careful balance. No species is allowed to become too powerful. No intervention is permitted without unanimous consent. This has prevented large-scale conflicts. It has also prevented justice, Webb replied. Vareth would be a smoking ruin right now if humanity had followed your protocols. We sent 700 distress signals. The Council debated for 3 days while people died. That's not peace, Speaker Thorian. That's paralysis. You presume to lecture me on peace? Thorian's voice grew cold. My species has been mediating conflicts since before humanity even existed. We know the dangers of unilateral action. Webb met his gaze steadily. Then let me ask you this. If your homeworld were under attack, if your people were dying, would you want neighbors who debated for 3 days or neighbors who arrived in 4 hours? The question hung in the air. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. A new voice entered the discussion. Ambassador Lyra Kessin of Vareth, appearing via holographic transmission from her world. I can answer that question, she said. Her image showed the ruins behind her, recovery teams working among the debris. My world was dying. The Council, which we had trusted for a century, abandoned us. The humans whom we barely knew saved us. Not for profit. Not for territory. Not for influence. They saved us because it was right. She looked around the chamber, her 4 arms spread wide. I do not fear humanity. I fear the kind of galaxy where what happened to Vareth can happen again and no one comes. I fear the kind of council that values procedure over life. If humanity's presence here makes us uncomfortable, perhaps that discomfort is necessary. Perhaps we need to be reminded of what we're supposed to be. Silence fell over the chamber. Many ambassadors were nodding slowly. Thorian's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly, a sign of emotion he rarely showed. This matter requires further deliberation, he declared. The council is adjourned. We will reconvene in 3 days to discuss humanity's role moving forward. As the delegates began to disperse, Webb remained standing. He caught Thorian's attention before the speaker could leave. Speaker Thorian, one more thing. Yes. The Indomitable is currently orbiting Vareth, assisting in reconstruction. She'll remain there for as long as needed. Just so the council is aware. It was not a request. It was a statement of intent. Thorian regarded the human ambassador for a long moment. You are not asking permission? No, Webb said simply. We're informing you of our actions as courtesy demands. But we will not ask permission to do what is right. For the first time in 10,000 years of service, Speaker Thorian felt something he had not experienced in dealing with a younger species. Uncertainty. Not about humanity's power, that was now abundantly clear. But uncertainty about whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity represented. Very well, Thorian said quietly. We will speak again soon, Ambassador Webb. As the human delegation departed, whispers filled the chamber. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was not another weak species to be protected or manipulated. They were something far more dangerous. Protectors with the power to enforce their protection. And across the stars, in military academies and war rooms, Admirals and generals began recalculating every strategic assessment that had included the words human and negligible in the same sentence. The dark assembly murmurs of agreement came from several delegations, smaller species who lived in fear of their more powerful neighbors. Humanity is not interested in destabilizing the Council, Webb continued. We're interested in making it functional. We want a galaxy where membership means protection, where treaties have teeth, where the strong cannot prey on the weak without consequence. Is that really so threatening? 3 sectors away from Nexus Prime, in a region of space known as the Obsidian Reach, 14 warships hung in the void around a massive space station. The station itself was a marvel of stolen technology, cobbled together from conquered civilizations, bristling with weapons that had no legal right to exist. This was the territory of the sovereignty, not a government recognized by the Council, but a coalition of pirate lords, warlords, and rogue factions who ruled through fear and superior firepower. They were the boogeyman of civilized space, the reason why merchant convoys traveled in heavily armed groups and why entire sectors paid protection money. I'm suggesting we send a message, Karthek said. The humans have positioned themselves as protectors of the weak. Very well. Let us see how well they can protect when they're spread thin. Let us see what happens when they have to choose who to save. Thren's mechanical eyes glowed brighter, the synthetic's version of excitement. You propose simultaneous attacks on multiple targets? Precisely, Karthek said, a cruel smile crossing his features. The humans have 6 peacekeepers. We have 143 significant warships across our combined fleets. We hit 8 targets simultaneously, soft targets, defenseless colonies, places the humans have declared under their protection. They cannot be in 8 places at once. They will have to choose. And whatever they choose, we demonstrate their limitations. And what do we gain from this? Asked Captain Zrel, a pragmatic pirate whose fleet specialized in hit-and-run raids. Beyond satisfying your ego, Overlord, what is our objective? Karthex's eyes gleamed. We gain the truth. We learn whether the Indomitable was a singular achievement or if humanity truly has the capability they claim. We test their resolve. We force them to show their hand. And if we're lucky, we capture human technology that we can reverse engineer for our own use. And if they respond as effectively as they did at Vareth? Velrin asked. Then we retreat and regroup, Karthek said. But I suspect they cannot maintain that level of response across multiple simultaneous engagements. No species can. They are new to the stars, new to this scale of operation. They will make mistakes. And when they do, we will exploit them, rather than face annihilation. In the station's central chamber, 14 figures sat around a circular table. Each represented a different faction within the sovereignty. Some were aliens from known species who had turned to piracy. Others were from species so isolated or violent that the Council refused to acknowledge their existence. At the head of the table sat Overlord Karthex, a massive being whose species had been exiled from Council space 3 centuries ago for attempting to weaponize a star. His body was covered in metallic scales, and his 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through ship hull plating. His reputation was built on the destruction of 17 colony worlds and the enslavement of millions. He was watching the same footage everyone in the galaxy had seen, the Indomitable disabling the entire Kryn fleet. This changes everything, spoke Mistress Velrin, a former Meridian noble who had chosen piracy over poverty when her family fell from grace. Her serpentine body was adorned with stolen jewels. The humans were supposed to be weak. Our intelligence suggested they had minimal military capacity. Intelligence was wrong, Karthex rumbled. The question is, how wrong? A holographic projection activated, showing a detailed analysis of the Indomitable's capabilities. The presenter was Architect Thren, a synthetic being whose mechanical mind processed tactical data with frightening efficiency. Based on sensor data collected from various sources during the Vareth incident, Thren explained in a flat, emotionless voice, I have constructed a threat assessment. The human vessel designated Indomitable possesses shield strength exceeding any recorded system by a factor of 50, energy weapons with yield equivalent to stellar-class ordnance, propulsion technology allowing faster-than-light travel without traditional jump points, and targeting systems with 0.01 millisecond response time. I'm suggesting we send a message, Karthek said. The humans have positioned themselves as protectors of the weak. Very well. Let us see how well they can protect when they're spread thin. Let us see what happens when they have to choose who to save. Thren's mechanical eyes glowed brighter, the synthetic's version of excitement. You propose simultaneous attacks on multiple targets? Precisely, Karthek said, a cruel smile crossing his features. The humans have 6 peacekeepers. We have 143 significant warships across our combined fleets. We hit 8 targets simultaneously, soft targets, defenseless colonies, places the humans have declared under their protection. They cannot be in 8 places at once. They will have to choose. And whatever they choose, we demonstrate their limitations. And what do we gain from this? Asked Captain Zrel, a pragmatic pirate whose fleet specialized in hit-and-run raids. Beyond satisfying your ego, Overlord, what is our objective? Carthex's eyes gleamed. We gain the truth. We learn whether the Indomitable was a singular achievement or if humanity truly has the capability they claim. We test their resolve. We force them to show their hand. And if we're lucky, we capture human technology that we can reverse engineer for our own use. And if they respond as effectively as they did at Vareth? Velrin asked. Then we retreat and regroup, Carthex said. But I suspect they cannot maintain that level of response across multiple simultaneous engagements. No species can. They are new to the stars, new to this scale of operation. They will make mistakes. And when they do, we will exploit them. The vote was called. 12 of the 14 warlords agreed. Only Velrin and 1 other abstained, citing concerns about provoking a force they didn't fully understand. It is decided, Carthex declared. Begin preparations. Select 8 targets, small colonies, recent additions to Council space, worlds the humans have shown interest in protecting. We strike in 7 days, coordinated to the second. The galaxy will see that humanity is not invincible. As the meeting adjourned, Velrin slithered over to Thren. You're worried, she said, reading the subtle patterns in the synthetic's optical displays. I am incapable of worry, Thren replied. But my probability calculations suggest this course of action has a 68% chance of catastrophic failure. Yet you did not vote against it. Because I am curious, Thren admitted. Humans are an anomaly. Their development curve is unprecedented. I wish to see their full capabilities. Even if it results in our destruction, the data would be fascinating. Velrin shuddered and departed, leaving the synthetic alone with its calculations. In the void of space, the Sovereignty's warships began to move, plotting courses to 8 different systems. They did not know that every transmission they sent, every plan they made, was being monitored by a network of human surveillance satellites so advanced they were essentially invisible. And in a secure facility on Earth, Fleet Admiral Chen was receiving real-time updates on the Sovereignty's plans. She sat in a darkened room, watching the tactical displays with her command staff. They're actually doing it, Commander Torres said with disbelief. They're planning to attack 8 colonies simultaneously. They think we can't respond to all of them. Because we can't, Chen replied calmly. Not with the peacekeepers alone. Each vessel is positioned days away from multiple targets. Even at maximum speed, we could only reach 3, maybe 4 of the 8 targets in time. Then what do we do? Torres asked. Chen smiled, that same predatory expression she had shown Admiral Vkresh. We let them think they've found our weakness. And then we show them why assumptions about humanity are always dangerous. She stood and addressed her command staff. Initiate protocol revelation. Contact the fleet. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really been building. Part 6, The Revelation. 7 days later, the Sovereignty struck. 8 fleets, each composed of between 12 and 20 warships, jumped into 8 different systems simultaneously. They had chosen their targets carefully. Small colonies on the frontier of Council space, each with populations between 2 and 5 million, each recently placed under Earth's protection through diplomatic agreements. The colony of New Harmony was first to report the attack. A peaceful world of artists and musicians, inhabited by the Lyridian species, gentle beings whose philosophy emphasized non-violence and creative expression. When 14 pirate warships appeared in orbit and demanded surrender, the colony's governor sent out a desperate distress signal. The call reached Earth's defense network within seconds. Similar calls came from 7 other colonies: Theta Station, Paradise Cove, Crystal Shore, New Haven, Meridian, Sanctuary, and Hope's End. All under attack. All defenseless. All begging for help. In the Galactic Council's emergency session, pandemonium erupted. This is exactly what we feared. Ambassador Vril shouted. The humans have provoked the Sovereignty. Their show of force at Vareth has consequences. They didn't provoke anything, Ambassador Lyra countered. The Sovereignty has been raiding colonies for decades. The only difference now is that someone is willing to defend them. But can they? Speaker Thorian asked, looking at the human delegation. Ambassador Webb, your peacekeepers are not positioned to respond to all 8 attacks. What will you do? Marcus Webb stood, and something in his expression made the entire chamber fall silent. It was the look of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Speaker Thorian, honored council members, he said quietly. When humanity joined this council 3 months ago, we were honest about our capabilities. We reported our fleet strength accurately. 63 standard warships. We documented our peacekeeper vessels, 6 of them. Everything we told you was true. He paused, letting the tension build. But we never said that was everything we had. The chamber exploded with questions, but Webb raised his hand. The peacekeepers are our rapid response force. They're designed to handle situations like Varith, single-theater crises requiring immediate overwhelming force. But we always knew that humanity's role in the galaxy might require more comprehensive defensive capabilities. He activated a holographic display. It showed a star system, Sol, Earth's home. But the display was different from any previous scan. It showed not just planets and stations but hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. This is Earth's home fleet, Webb explained. These are not peacekeepers. These are frontline combat vessels built specifically for large-scale defensive operations. We have 200 heavy cruisers, 500 destroyers, 300 frigates, and 100 support carriers. Each one is equipped with technology equal to what you saw on the Indomitable. The silence in the chamber was absolute. And that's just the home fleet, Webb continued. Each of our 6 regional defense sectors has similar numbers. In total, humanity maintains a defensive navy of approximately 6,000 warships, all built to the same technological standard as the Indomitable. Impossible, someone whispered. You keep using that word, Commander Torres said, stepping forward. You really need to stop using that word around humans. Dr. Chin activated another display, this one showing construction yards orbiting Earth's moon. We built all of this in 200 years, he explained. Once humanity unified and achieved peace, we turned our entire industrial base towards space exploration and defense. Every major nation on Earth contributed. We built construction facilities in orbit, automated shipyards on our moon, resource extraction operations on asteroids. We did in 2 centuries what most species take millennia to accomplish, because we approached it with the same intensity we once brought to warfare. But why? Thorian asked, and for the first time, his ancient voice carried a note of genuine confusion. Why build such a vast fleet if you claim to be peaceful? Webb met his gaze. Because history taught us that hoping for peace is not the same as ensuring it. Because we learned that the only way to truly protect the innocent is to be strong enough that no one dares threaten them. Because we decided that if we were going to join a galactic community, we would be ready to defend it, all of it, not just ourselves. You've been hiding a fleet of 6,000 warships, the Kryn delegate said, his voice shaking with anger. That's a deception. That's a threat to the entire council. No, Webb said firmly. The display showed fleet compositions. Each colony now had 20 human warships in orbit, facing down the pirate forces. The sovereignty wanted to test our resolve, Webb said. They wanted to see if we would hesitate, if we would falter, if we would reveal ourselves to be limited. Instead, they've revealed themselves to be obsolete. Humanity doesn't need to choose who to save. We save everyone. In the new Harmony system, the battle was already over. Captain Maria Santos of the UESC Defender stood on her bridge, watching the pirate fleet attempt to flee. They hadn't even fired a shot. The moment 20 human warships had appeared from nowhere, not from jump points but simply materializing as if space itself had opened to birth them, the pirates had panicked. Should we pursue, Captain? Her tactical officer asked. Negative, Santos replied. Our orders are clear. Defend the colony, ensure the safety of the population, and allow enemy forces to retreat. We're here to protect, not to hunt. But Captain, we could end these pirates. Our strength is not measured by how many we destroy, Santos said quietly, but by how many we save. Let them run. Let them tell their friends what they saw here. Let the word spread that humanity keeps its promises. The same scene played out across all 8 systems. The sovereignty's fleets retreated in disarray, shocked and terrified by the sudden appearance of overwhelming force. On the bridge of his flagship, Overlord Carthex watched his grand plan crumble. Every fleet he'd sent was in full retreat. Not one had engaged the humans. Not one had even attempted to fight. How, he roared. How did they deploy so many ships so quickly? Those vessels appeared from nowhere. No jump signatures, no warning. Architect Thren's voice crackled over the communication line. Overlord, I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout human-controlled space. They have been building gate technology. Not jump points, something more advanced. Instantaneous transit portals that allow their ships to appear anywhere their gates exist. And based on sensor readings, they have gates in hundreds of systems. Carthax felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. How long, he asked quietly. How long have they had this capability? Based on the sophistication of the technology, at least 50 years, Thren calculated. They have been building this network in secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. And we gave them that moment, Mistress Velrin said, her voice coming over the channel with bitter irony. We walked right into their demonstration. They wanted someone to test them, to give them an excuse to show the galaxy what they could really do. Congratulations, Overlord. You just made humanity's case for them. Carthax stared at the retreating ships on his display. His grand coalition, the force that had terrorized the galaxy for generations, had been effortlessly swatted aside like insects. Order all sovereignty forces to withdraw to the Obsidian Reach, he commanded. No engagements with human vessels. No raids on human-protected worlds. We need time to reassess and regroup. But even as he gave the order, Carthax knew the truth, the age of the promise. A promise that no one under humanity's protection will ever be abandoned. A promise that aggression will meet resistance. A promise that the weak will have defenders. He turned to address the entire chamber. The sovereignty thought they were clever. They thought they'd found our weakness by attacking multiple colonies simultaneously. They thought we'd have to choose who to save and who to abandon. They were wrong. Webb pressed a button, and the holographic display shifted to show real-time tactical data. 15 minutes ago, elements of Earth's defense fleet jumped into all 8 systems under attack. Each colony is now defended by a force equivalent to what the sovereignty brought to attack them. But we didn't just match their numbers. We exceeded them. 2 weeks after the sovereignty's failed attacks, the Galactic Council convened for a historic vote. The chamber was packed, with representatives from every member species present. The question before them was simple yet profound. How should the Council respond to humanity's revelation? Speaker Thorian called the assembly to order. His crystalline form seemed dimmer than usual, as if the weight of this moment had physically affected him. For 10,000 years, Thorian began, this council has maintained peace through balance. No single species has been allowed to grow too powerful. Coalitions and alliances have prevented any one faction from dominating the others. This system has prevented large-scale wars and maintained stability across thousands of systems. He paused, his bioluminescent organs pulsing slowly. And then came humanity. A species that has been in space for barely 2 centuries. A species we accepted as a junior member, expecting them to learn their place, to grow slowly under our guidance. Instead, they have demonstrated capabilities that dwarf most of our civilizations. They have built a defensive network that could potentially challenge all of us combined. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The question before us is this: do we see humanity as a threat to be contained or as an asset to be embraced? Do we demand they reduce their fleet, limit their technology, and submit to council oversight? Or do we acknowledge that our old ways may no longer serve us? Ambassador Webb stood to address the council. He looked tired. The past 2 weeks had been filled with endless meetings, explanations, and negotiations. But his voice remained strong. Speaker Thorian, members of the council, he began. I understand your concerns. Humanity's reveal was dramatic, perhaps unnecessarily so. But understand that we didn't build this fleet to threaten you. We built it because we looked at the galaxy and saw something familiar. A system where the strong prey on the weak and the governing body is too paralyzed by politics to intervene. He walked to the center of the chamber, standing in the circular space where all could see him. On Earth, we had a similar system for thousands of years. Nations formed councils, made treaties, established rules. But when one nation invaded another, the councils debated. When genocides occurred, they passed resolutions. When peoples cried for help, they formed committees to study the issue. And millions died while diplomats talked. His words cut through the chamber like a knife. We built this fleet because we refused to let that happen on a galactic scale. The Kryn attacked Vareth, and the council debated for 3 days. How many died in those 3 days? The sovereignty has been raiding colonies for decades, and the council has done nothing because opposing them was too difficult, too expensive, too risky. How many millions have been enslaved while you maintained your precious balance? You speak as if we don't care, Ambassador Vril said angrily. We have kept the peace. You've kept the status quo, Webb interrupted. There's a difference. Peace isn't just the absence of large-scale war. It's the presence of justice, security, and the protection of the innocent. Can you honestly say the galaxy had that before humanity arrived? Silence fell over the chamber. Ambassador Lyra Kessin stood, her forearms spread wide. He's right. My world was dying and the Council did nothing. The humans saved us. Since then, how many other raids has the Sovereignty attempted? How many other colonies have gone unharmed because the pirates now know humanity will respond? Other ambassadors from smaller species began to stand, adding their voices. The Dominion has not launched a single invasion since Vareth. Pirate attacks in human-protected space have dropped to zero. Trade routes that were once dangerous are now safe. Small species like mine can now travel without fear. The tide was shifting. Speaker Thorian could feel it. The smaller species, the vulnerable ones who had lived in fear for generations, were seeing humanity not as a threat but as salvation. And what about the larger species? Thorian asked, looking at the representatives of the Council's traditional powers. The ancient civilizations who have maintained this order? Do we simply abdicate our position to these newcomers? The Praxis delegate, representing one of the oldest and most technologically advanced species, stood. Her people had been traveling the stars for 15,000 years. When she spoke, everyone listened. I have reviewed the technical data from humanity's ships, she said, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber. Their technology is not just advanced, it's revolutionary. They have approached problems from angles we never considered. Their shield technology alone would take us centuries to develop. Their gate network is based on principles our scientists dismissed as impossible. She looked at Webb with what might have been respect. Humanity did not steal our technology. They did not copy our methods. They developed everything themselves from their own unique perspective. And that perspective came from 10,000 years of warfare, of competition, of pushing themselves to survive and excel. They are not a threat to us. They are proof that our comfortable, stable civilization has become stagnant. Thorian's organs pulsed rapidly. Are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we need them, the Praxis delegate said bluntly. Not just for their military power but for their innovation, their drive, their willingness to take action. They remind us of what we once were, before we became so focused on maintaining balance that we forgot why we created this council in the first place. The chamber erupted in discussion. Hours of debate followed. Proposals and counterproposals flew back and forth. But gradually a consensus emerged. Finally, Thorian called for the vote. The motion before the council, shall human it. Acknowledging their role as defenders of council space and granting them authority to respond to crises without requiring unanimous council approval. The vote was called. One by one, species cast their ballots. When the final count was tallied, the result was clear. 423 in favor, 51 against, 26 abstentions. The motion passes, Thorian declared. Humanity is hereby granted protector status. May the cosmos have mercy on us if we've made the wrong decision. Webb bowed slightly. We will not fail your trust, Speaker. 3 months later, Admiral Sarah Chin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now orbiting a small colony world called Sanctuary. Below, construction crews, a mix of human engineers and local workers, were building new defense platforms. Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of systems as humanity expanded its defensive network. Commander Torres approached with a data pad. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Piracy is down 70%. Unauthorized territorial incursions have dropped to nearly zero. 3 species have applied for protectorate status under Earth's defense network. And the sovereignty? Chin asked. Fragmented. Overlord Carthex was overthrown by his own forces. Most of the pirate fleets have either disbanded or retreated to the far edges of unexplored space. A few have actually approached us about amnesty in exchange for information on remaining hostile forces. Chin smiled. Sometimes the best weapon is the one you never have to fire. How's the integration with Council forces going? Better than expected. The Praxis have shared some of their sensor technology in exchange for our shield designs. The Pelothians want to collaborate on medical research. Even some of the larger species are coming around. They're starting to see us as partners rather than threats. Chin walked to the observation window looking down at Sanctuary. It was a beautiful world, covered in vast oceans and scattered islands. The people here had lived in fear of raids for generations. Now they could finally sleep peacefully. You know what the irony is? Chin said quietly. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war, building weapons that could destroy our own world 100 times over. We got so good at killing each other that we terrified ourselves into peace. And now, all that terrible knowledge, all that capacity for violence, has become our greatest tool for protecting others. Maybe that's what we were always meant to do, Torres suggested. Maybe humanity needed to learn how to be dangerous so we could learn how to keep others safe. Maybe, Chin agreed. Or maybe we just got lucky that our violent past prepared us for a galaxy that needed defenders. Either way, we have a responsibility now. The galaxy is watching us. Counting on us. She turned to Torres. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we need to expand the Peacekeeper program. 6 ships aren't enough. We need one in every sector, ready to respond to any crisis within hours. And tell the shipyards to start construction on the new fleet carriers. If we're going to be protectors, we need to be present. Yes, Admiral. As Torres departed, Chin returned her gaze to the planet below. Somewhere down there, children were playing without fear. Families were planning their futures with confidence. Artists were creating works that would never be destroyed by raiders. That, she thought, was worth all the years of preparation. Worth all the sacrifices humanity had made to reach the stars. They had come to the galaxy expecting to find their place among ancient civilizations. Instead, they had found their purpose, to be the shield that others needed, to be the force that stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. In the depths of space, 6,000 human warships stood ready, their crews vigilant, their weapons prepared but silent. They were not conquerors. They were not invaders. They were guardians, and the galaxy slept better knowing they were there. On Earth, in the halls of the United Earth Space Command, a new motto was being inscribed. We came from war. We chose peace. We protect both. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000,000 homes, beings of every species told their children the story of how humanity rose from a small blue world, looked at the stars, and decided that power was not for taking but for giving safety, giving hope, giving the promise that no cry for help would go unanswered. The galaxy had thought no help would come. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, their capability, their determination to be more than what their violent history might have suggested. The human warship had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same. And that, perhaps, was exactly what it needed.